Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with the Friday edition of Today in Sports Betting. And man, this is the weekend. This is the show that I've really been looking forward to all week. We've got the Belmont Stakes on Saturday, and we're going to take a look at that. And before I bring on my special guest, I'm going to introduce, as always, my co-host for the show. He is up there in the neighborhood of Belmont. Very disappointed he's not going to be able to make it this week. I know he's probably been, 3 or 4 in a row. He is Scott Reichel. Scott, you doing okay with not going to the Belmont, man?
I mean, it's not like I have a choice in the matter, so I'm kind of got to deal with it. Yeah, it's definitely upsetting. I definitely like going. I've probably witnessed the most controversial Triple Crown winner in recent memory, as I saw Justify win live, which was always a fun time. But overall, I'm gonna have to watch it from my couch, and that's pretty much the way I'm gonna have to go about it. So hopefully, at least the races are gonna be good.
Now, is the Belmont one of those races you don't buy a special hat like you do for the Kentucky Derby, right? You didn't have a hat that you weren't getting ready to wear.
I mean, if you plan on buying the hat to go with your $14 beer, then I feel you're going to have an expensive afternoon. So, you got to pick and choose your battles every now and then.
All right, fair enough. And, Scott, instead of watching us fumble around with horse racing, we have brought a true expert on. He is the man over there at Racing Dudes. He's having a hell of a busy week, and we appreciate him stopping by to lend a little expertise to us. He is Curtis Kalleward, all the way from the great state of California. Curtis, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming back on, man. We appreciate it.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me back on. Congrats, you got my name right. The last time you had me on, you were so nervous about getting it that you got it off there, and then you kind of stepped out of the gate when you did it live. So you got it this time. Good job.
He stumbled out of the gate. Curtis, I'm not going to lie. I wanted to find a video where you pronounce your name, so I make sure I got it right. I watched the video of you driving the was it a Lambo?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The Lamborghini Mercon. That was a birthday present or Christmas present from a long time ago. So yeah.
And I watched it and I saw the video like, well, there's no way he's going to say his name. You say your name like right off the bat. The guy asks you how you pronounce your name. He goes Kalleward, like perfect. And then I'm not going to lie, I got sucked into watching the rest of the video. So congratulations on not crashing the Lambo.
Ooh, that was a lot of fun too. Going, I did the math, the conversion, because the video is in kilometers per hour. I think it was 120, 140 miles an hour. I got that thing up to. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I have actually a slight background in racing open wheel cars. So being able to do that was definitely a dream come true. And then speaking of dreams, it's finally a dream come true that the Belmont's finally here, because for the longest time, we didn't even think we were going to have Triple Crown or horse racing in general. So I'm glad to be back on and glad to talk about some good races.
What sums up this crazy year more than the Belmont Stakes kicking off the Triple Crown, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, the Kentucky Derby got moved to September 5th. The Preakness, they put that on October 6th. And NBC Sports has the contractual deal to air all the Triple Crown races. And as you guys very well know, college football is going to kick off around the time that Preakness is going, and they didn't have any dates left available. And they said, well, we'll just put it in the summer and we'll make it the first leg of the Triple Crown. It's going to be interesting this year because the Belmont is usually the third leg. It's also usually the longest at 1.5 miles. The horses have never gone beyond 1.8 miles up to this point. And so a lot of it is for the safety of the horses and just making sure we have fit horses who can even compete. They dropped it back to 1.8 miles. So it's really just a one-turn race because of how big Belmont is. But nonetheless, I think we're going to see a superstar there.
And this has been a busy week for you with not just the Belmont, a couple stakes races there at Belmont on Saturday as well, but it's the Royal Ascot week over there from Great Britain. And as we learned here relatively recently, the Royal Ascot is kind of the equivalent of America's Breeders' Cup, where they run different races all week long. You've been getting up at 5:30 local time to cover those. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's literally roll out of bed. I do all the prep work the night before, so all this stuff that a website manager would know, so all the SEO stuff to make sure that you show up on Google and everything. I do all of that the night before, so I literally roll out of bed, put on a hoodie, grab my headphones so I don't wake my wife up, and start watching the races. So I mean, there's worse things to be doing at 5:30 in the morning, and a much worse job to be doing. So I'm not complaining too much.
Absolutely, and I think we've all been there. Whenever we don't get enough sleep, or when you're like, you know what, we could be actually working for a living. So
yeah, I mean, when you say that, I wouldn't go that far criticizing the Korean baseball, or but overall, I definitely understand where you're coming from when it comes to watching.
Curtis, do you have kids?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Okay, so you don't have any, because they're not ever on your schedule. If they're on their schedule. So that's the part that sucks. If you have to get up early and So good for you that you only have to worry about not waking the sleeping wife. So
I'm trying to think of what else is on TV at 5:30, and Korean baseball is the only thing I could think of, besides maybe the occasional golf, but that usually starts at like 6 something now.
the Green Acres rerun or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Curtis, and final question about the Royal Ascot. Are you doing all right with your own bets? You making any money?
So this year I actually didn't do it because the condensed racing schedule of everything. I've been so focused on the Belmont this week that normally I would handicap and pick out a couple races a day at Royal Ascot to bet. Haven't done it this year. There were 2 horses that I really liked. One of them didn't win. One of them did. His name is Stradivarius. If you've never heard of this horse, you probably haven't. Most Americans haven't.
Oh no.
He won what's called the Gold Cup, which is I think it's a little over 2 miles long, which you never see American horses do that on any surface. And this horse has won it for the 3rd straight time this year. It's the 3rd horse ever to win this. And this is one of the biggest premier events of the entire Royal Ascot meet. So the way in which he did it, it sent chills down your spine if you were watching, because after 1 3/4 miles, you think, these horses are just gasping for breath. They just pressed the go button on him and he took off. He won by about 10 lengths. It's like everybody else was running in molasses and he was running on the fastest ground possible. So whenever you can see any kind of performance like that, even if you don't follow that specific circuit very often, it's something else, and it definitely makes getting up at 5:30 worth it.
So just a quick question for what are the ages of the horses in the Royal Ascot? Is there a reason why they're in this type of situation instead of participating in the Triple Crown races?
Well, you're almost all European horses. For them, this is kind of like their build. This is something they aim for. Like American horses aim for the Kentucky Derby,
okay,
the Kentucky Oaks. In Europe, they aim for the Royal Ascot, and then they have their own turf versions, more or less, of like what the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks are. So for them, that's what they build towards. Dirt racing doesn't exist in Europe. They have synthetic surfaces somewhere. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly all turf there. So that's also a big reason why you don't see too many American horses go over. We have had some success in the past, but this is usually a European-dominated meet. And they have horses that's, as young as 2 that have made 1 career start that are racing in these events. And then you have horses as old as 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10. As long as they're in peak performance, they'll just keep competing.
I was curious because I know occasionally in the Belmont you see a horse from just international, sometimes Japan, etc. Mm-hmm. I was curious if there was any correlation between European horses maybe not being more frequently involved in the Belmont, but I feel you just addressed that. So
it's more that they have their own thing to aim for over there. And there was a horse named Mendelssohn who came and competed in the Kentucky Derby a couple of years ago.
I remember Mendelssohn. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's the rare horse that will come over because he actually went to Dubai they have one major Kentucky Derby prep there called the UAE Derby. He went there and looked brilliant on the dirt. And so because of that, the connection said, okay, we'll bring him over to Kentucky and try the Kentucky Derby. But for most of them, it's why risk it if you don't know if they're going to handle the dirt. American racing is a lot rougher than European racing. So
it's the surface thing. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's it sounds like, and I remember Mendelssohn because I think I had a losing bet on him. So yeah, good times.
There weren't many winning bets on Mendelssohn whenever he came to America. So you're probably right.
All right. So let's get started. Take a look at the at the card for Saturday. And I know everybody wants to talk about the Belmont, but Curtis, there's a couple of pretty good races, stakes races that are going to be going Saturday in they start with the 8th race, which is going to be the Acorn, the Longines Acorn Grade 1 Stakes. And tell us about that one just a little bit.
Sure. So the Acorn Stakes is this year going to be a Kentucky Oaks prep race because the Oaks is also going to be much later in the year. It's always the Friday before the Kentucky Derby. So you're seeing a lot of races. Even the Belmont Stakes is going to be a Kentucky Derby prep race this year. So the winner is going to get points towards making the gate. You can see the same thing with the Acorn. And we were talking off air beforehand about how the condensed schedules have made it so difficult to put quality horses in a lot of these fields because every major track is trying to run their big races over the same 3-4 week period here. But that being said, races 8, 9, and 10, they're 3 straight Grade 1 races, starting with the Acorn, ending with the Belmont. And you have some really talented horses. The Acorn race itself doesn't have anybody that really jumps out at you on paper in terms of winning multiple graded stakes races. There's nobody flying in with, the hype of a Tis the Law in the Belmont that we'll talk about later. But this is going to be an interesting race. And it starts with the horse on the rail, Gamine, for Bob Baffert. This horse won at Oakland Park on May 2nd, the same weekend that Charlatan, a Bob Baffert trainee, won one half of the Arkansas Derbies. Charlatan and Gamine both were reportedly tested positive for a numbing agent afterwards. We talked about that the last time I was on the show.
Right.
Arkansas's racing commission that handles everything and would, does the testing, doles out any penalties. They said afterwards that because of Charlatan was probably going to the Belmont and Gamine was probably going to the Acorn, they said, we promise we'll get those test results, the split sample. We'll get that out. We'll confirm for sure whether it was a positive test or negative before the Belmont. Well, it's Friday. We still haven't heard anything about it. So assuming that we don't hear anything about this positive test, whether it was confirmed positive or she ends up passing, I mean, Gamine has to be your standout. She is so powerful. She's gone gate to wire in both of her starts. At Oakland Park race, she got a little leg weary at the end, but that was going 2 turns. We're going a 1 turn here, which for a horse with a lot of speed like Gamine, you're going to expect to see that. She should be able to handle going that distance. She's got a Hall of Fame jockey, John Velasquez, in the saddle. He's won more grade 1s than any jockey in racing history. So that's a good person to have riding you. And going from the rail, she's going to go to the front. So that's just the perfect spot for her. So this race starts off with Gamine, and you really got to pay attention to her.
Yeah, I actually have one quick question I was going to ask you, because
Sure.
I know that we talked about Gamine and Charlatan and how they were having some type of drug test concerns there.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're still waiting for the results in Gamine, what exactly happened with Charlatan? Did they just prematurely take him out of the Belmont? What exactly happened there? Because I remember looking for his name, and it just wasn't there. And I wasn't sure if he was ever found. I don't know what happened there. Did they appeal or anything, or did they just decide to pull him out?
So the way that testing works is it's the same, I believe, with athletes in the major sports in America too. If you are come up with a positive test, they take split samples at the time. So you had Gamine and Charlatan and everyone else who got tested. They have 2 samples for their blood. The first sample goes off to a lab and gets tested. If it comes back positive, it's supposed to be kept confidential. So the trainer, the owner are told, this is what we found. You have the option to have a second test sampled so you can appeal it. So that's what they usually do. It depends on how much of a conspiracy theorist you are, because there are those who believe that the information got leaked when it really shouldn't have, to try and send a message that Bob Baffert may have been cheating, and that Oakland Park, which is kind of notorious for allowing cheating trainers to flourish, that because that was the end of the meet, they said, look, next year, none of this is happening. Charlatan, turns out, coincidentally or not, had filling in his ankle shortly after the announcement was made. And so Bob Baffert said he's going to give him 60 days off. We're going to skip the Belmont. So
okay,
it depends if you're a conspiracy theorist and you think Baffert is just saying this because he thought he was going to test positive. Horses are very fragile creatures. He very well could have had filling in his ankle. It could be a coincidence.
Okay, fair enough.
So
all right. So you like Gamine in this one, even though you think there's value at Morning Line stands at even money. Is money probably going to come in on her?
She's, especially if we don't get any kind of announcement. I mean, she does have the best last out buyer speed figure of 98, which is very high. That's definitely the best of this field. If you're looking for value, you're not going to get it with Gamine. And this sequence of races we're going to talk about, this pick 3, does have a chance to go chalk, especially at the very last leg. So in a race like this and like the Belmont, you kind of have to look for how can you find value. So for example, if you want to look at a horse like Perfect Alibi, who's all the way on the outside, from a buyer speed figure, her best was 74. She hit that twice last year as a 2-year-old. But you also have to consider the fact that she did win a grade 1 race, the Spinaway Stakes, going 1 turn at Saratoga. She did go to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, which is an extreme vote of confidence. And when you have a Hall of Fame trainer like Mark Casse, yeah, he's only got 1 win from 19 starts at this meet right now, but he's 15% with a long layoff for horses. And he's, I believe, 18% when he's bringing horses back from this kind of a layoff into top-level competition. So it's not just that he can get a horse ready, it's that he can get it ready to fire at a big level off of a long layoff. There are plenty of places you guys could go here. The 4 casual, undefeated in 2 starts, just like Gamine is. Not as flashy, but you also have Steve Asmussen and Ricardo Santana Jr., who are the best jockey trainer combo in America. Back-to-back 90 buyer speed figures going 1 turn against some pretty talented horses. That's a pretty good number as well. And I guess if you really wanted to try and go for a long shot, I like the 5 glass ceiling. Danny Gargan is a trainer who's known for taking horses at a claiming level, which means you can, before the race goes off, you can just put your name down and say, for a predetermined price, I want to buy that horse after this race. Bought glass ceiling for $40,000. She ends up winning. He immediately put her into a grade 2 race. She didn't win, but the fact that he went from such a low level into a high level competition shows what he thinks about the horse. It was too much. She didn't get the win. Puts her back in a smaller allowance level against horses that have run for claiming tags previously. She wins that one, But it's that last race at Gulfstream Park that really caught my attention because she was able to set the pace, a pressured pace, which we talked about the last time I was on. When you have horses pressing you on the lead, it's a lot more adrenaline than if you were just running free on your own. She got the job done and she really held off. So I would expect to see her apply a lot of pressure to Gamine. And because Glass Ceiling has shown that she doesn't care about that early pressure, that she can draw off, whereas Gamine has never been pressured before, you have what we call a vulnerable favorite here. So if you're looking to beat Gamine, Glass Ceiling, Casual, Perfect Alibi, all great choices.
Well, I don't know what it says, but I have three horses written down, and those are the three that I had. I like that. I was looking at Perfect Alibi. I like the fact that, like you said, she won the Spinaway. She got beaten by British Idiom, which was pretty much the horse of the year as far as the 2-year-old fillies go, right?
Yep.
And then we're beaten by and I'm gonna butcher the name, the Darley Alcibiades at Keeneland. How badly did I do that? Where she finished second to British Idiom.
You're close. Alcibiades, but it's close.
Okay.
He knew what you were talking about, so you were close enough.
Exactly.
And then finished fourth in the Breeders' Cup, losing once again to British Idiom. And I was looking at Glass Ceiling, and here's a couple things that I worried about with Glass Ceiling. The fact that she's had a different rider pretty much every race. I guess Rosario rode the first time, and then she's had 4 different riders since then before Rosario catches the mount again in this one. Does that concern you at all, Curtis?
It doesn't. With so many races on the day, you're going to see some of the top jockeys have to take a break from time to time. Irad Ortiz Jr. is riding Perfect Alibi. He was aboard Glass Ceiling last time. He rides for Mark Casse and Danny Gargan a lot, both of them. And Joel Rosario is, for my money, one of the best jockeys in the country. So Irad Ortiz Jr. is the leading jockey in terms of earnings right now. Rosario, I believe, is probably 5th or 6th. So you're not really seeing much of a drop-off there. If you were seeing a drop-off to a second-tier jockey, then I would say there's plenty of cause for concern. But with Rosario aboard also, I would expect to see her pull back a little bit and try and make one run. Rosario, he can win with front runners. His better style is to pull back a little bit and try and charge. So don't be so surprised if you see that happen. He can frustrate bettors with his technique because he does like to do that. But he's got a great feel for horses, and he's what I call the best hands and heels rider, which means he doesn't need to use the whip. He just gets his whole body into a rhythm with a horse, and once he gets that going, it usually works out really well. All
right, and I know at 20 to 1, you're going to find faults. The other thing I worried about with that horse is the fact that she's only gone more than 7 furlongs one time, and it did not go well. She ended up finishing 7th, 14.5 off the pace. She's won the last 2 at 7 furlongs. Does the added furlong cause you any concern, Curtis?
It would if this was a 2-turn race. So if this race was at a track like Santa Anita Park, a mile is 2 turns there. Because This is 1 turn, she's able to use that speed a lot more decisively on the front end. So because she's able to run straighter longer and only has to kind of corner and temper that speed once, it works in her favor.
All right, very good. You and me, ride or die with 7-1-5. I like that. And what do you have a particular order? Do you think anybody's got anything for Gamine as far as winning the race?
I think so. I think there's enough pace pressure in here that you could see something crazy happen. But one more thing about Bob Baffert, he almost never loses when he ships a horse to Belmont Park. I did the math a couple of weeks ago. I want to say something like 28 to 30% with winners when he ships them out from California. So if you see Bob Baffert in a Belmont Park race, even if you don't like that she's the even money favorite, if you're playing any kind of a pick 3 sequence or pick 4, pick 5, you have to use her defensively because the price sucks, but there's such a strong chance that she could win that you really can't risk getting yourself knocked out. Because if you had a 20 to 1 shot win the next 4 races and you had those 4, but you left off Gamine because you hated that she was even money, well, you missed out on a $10,000, $20,000 cash there that you're going to be kicking yourself for.
Very good. Scotty, you got any thoughts on this race? Who you got picked out?
Well, Gamine, of course, was the one who jumped off the page. You got Baffert, you got Velasquez. I feel like that's pretty much the perfect combination you'd want in this race, especially considering the fact that Gamine, as we've talked about before, is definitely the class of this race, and the overnight and the lines have already indicated that. Personally, I think Gamine's probably going to close at 3 to 5. I don't think he's going to close 1 to 1. I expect the horse to end up closing at pretty much minus money. So I don't know if you're going to get that much of a price on that one. I do agree about Alibi, Perfect Alibi with Irad Ortiz Jr. as the jockey. My question, though, was about the horse Casual. I know currently second favorite at 3-1, but none of us really brought up the horse. Is there any particular reason why you think the horse is, you'd say, a little bit overvalued based on the current price?
I don't think I wouldn't say overvalued. I would expect it, as you see more money. I'm with you. I think.
Drop.
Yeah, I think that you're going to see Gamin's money drop. So Casual, I would say you're going to get a better price probably than that, which means you're probably going to get an overlay, because if you value her at 3-1, 5-2, something like that, if you see 7-2, that's a short price, but you're getting value because you were expecting a certain level. She's got great breeding. She's got great connections. But if you look at her running line, both of her wins, impressively, were when she was coming slightly off the pace. With this setup here, you're going to expect Glass Ceiling to go. You're definitely going to expect Gamin to go. Lucrezia, who's breaking from post 2, I'd expect to see her go as well. So if you put Casual, we call it the catbird seat, where they just sit off a little bit, and you can cut. You just, it's almost like Tom and Jerry, when you would just see Tom sitting there licking his chops, trying to see where Jerry was going to be at. You've got Casual here who's just going to be ready to fire. And I'm telling you, when it's a dirt race, one turn, Santana Jr. and Asmussen, man, when they team up, it can be really deadly.
Well, and Casual does have back-to-back 90 speed figures, so there's definitely some speed there. This really shapes up to be looks like a fun race, you know, with a lot of early speed and a lot of you got a couple of stalkers there. It should be good. So Scott, anybody else you got your eye on?
Well, Perfect Alibi I already mentioned. Glass Ceiling, I can't say that I was that attracted to before you mentioned some points there. I was looking to Lucrezia, who I think has the ability to potentially make a very solid run here. I'm hoping I didn't butcher that name. That sounded right when I said it, but I think. But
Sounds
either
good.
or, yeah. If I had to play it, I can't play Gamin straight up here. I mean, unless you find a fixed line of roughly 1-1 right now, it's going to close at minus money, and I feel like it's just not worth my time. But I think if you were going to be doing an exacta with maybe 1-2-7, I feel like that's a decent way to go at this. I think Gamin's going to win. I think Gamin's definitely the class of the actual race. But I think if you are able to look for a second place finish between Lucrezia and Perfect Alibi, I do think that Glass Ceiling could potentially be a dark horse candidate to sabotage that. But in reality, I think Gamin's just so far ahead of every other horse. I'm not as high on Casual as we just talked about the reasons why. But I do think that Lucrezia or Perfect Alibi should come in second, in my opinion. So for that reason, I would probably look to 1-2-7 on an exacta if I had to play it anyway.
Well, and one thing you can do too is there's a difference. There's a term called boxing a bet, which is if you thought it was going to be 1-2-7, those three horses you're sure are going to finish first and second. You can just say what's boxing, which means you play all three of them to win and all three of them to come in second, and it increases your chances of hitting the bet. But if you really feel strongly about Gamin, and especially because she's going to be a short number, and this is a topic I'll bring up again for the Belmont, you can single Gamin on top. You say she's going to win, and you pick your three horses underneath, and then that way it costs you less for a base bet.
It's also risky. It's also riskier though, because if Gamin doesn't win, then you lose the whole thing. But
it is. So it's all based on your confidence there, but that's a way that you can find value, even though it's going to be what you're thinking is a 3-5 winner. It's better to do that. It's a better profit level than if you just bet her straight to win.
Yeah, in comparison, I was thinking of the latter. I was thinking just put Gamin to win, put the other two horses to come in second, and that's how I'd go about it. I'm assuming we're all in agreement, though, that we think Gamin is probably going to win this race.
You got my vote.
Yeah. So based on that, it's a matter for me of which value you can find coming in second. And I do think that Glass Ceiling has a good shot. But I think if you really wanted to hedge that exacta that I just mentioned, you could just take Glass Ceiling to show. And then maybe you can get a hedge there, or maybe even to place, and you could try to figure out a way to hedge your bet there.
That's a good bet. Yeah, especially if Gamin, she's going to take so much money to win place and show. If she just doesn't show up for whatever reason, that show bet is going to balloon. So even if you just did that, which is the least risky bet possible, she just has to finish in the top three, you're going to get paid, and it's going to be really nice if Gamin doesn't hit the board.
Yeah, I mean, even if you wanted to do it just to place, you could also find a hedge there, and I think that Ceiling should end up closing as a pretty solid price for you if you were going to take that horse to show. I'm assuming we're in agreement on that?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right, very good. All right, so let's move on to the next race here, race number 9, and this is going to be another Grade 1 stakes race. This is the Jaipur. They're going 6 furlongs. This is a turf race, and it basically means that you're going to have some horses with some experience, some horses with quite a, if you excuse the expression, a track record, and some older horses in this one. This is a kind of shapes up to be a little more wide open. You've got a couple favorites bringing over the Australian lady, the Oleksandr from she's a 7-2. Pure Sensation, the 4 horses, 5-2. Stubbins got some speed there, is 3-1. Curtis, how do you see this one shaking out?
I love these turf sprints. I really do, because they're so fun. And I talked about last time, it's such a hard race to handicap sometimes because the littlest thing can completely ruin a horse's chance. And you talked about Stubbins. There's a perfect example. In his last race, he was coming flying along the rail, and then real late he had to steady. He could have won that race, but because he steadied in such a quick race, he lost all chance at winning. Stubbins is going to be tough to beat here. I'm taking a very slight lean towards Oleksandr. These turf sprint races tend to set up very fast. These are probably the fastest thoroughbreds in America are turf sprinters. And so, especially when you have a lot of them line up here, like Pure Sensation, you would expect to see somebody coming from off the pace a little bit. Oleksandr does her best running from the rear. This is a horse who last fall we were thinking was one of the best turf sprinters in America, male or female. So she comes in to take the boys on here, and I think she's got a great shot. That race, the Monrovia, when she made her debut for this year, she came flying late. She missed it by a half length to Jolie Olympica, who's probably the best turf sprinter in America right now, male or female. Jolie Olympica was the sure winner, but Oleksandr only missed by a half length, and now she's going a half furlong longer. If Jolie Olympica was in this race, she would be my top pick. So for a horse that just missed closing by a half length and now is getting an extra half furlong, against what I think are a slightly weaker group of horses, very slightly, I'm going to go with Oleksandr. But I think if you're going to use Oleksandr, you have to use Stubbins, because this horse has got pure class. He also loves to close. He hasn't actually done this distance. He's gone longer, he's gone shorter, but it's going to be right within his wheelhouse. And Doug O'Neill's not someone who likes to ship very often unless he thinks he's got a good chance to win. Luis Saez is a tremendous jockey. I would expect a really strong effort from Stubbins.
I actually watched that Monrovia, and Oleksandr coming off the pace. You thought, there's no way that horse is going to get there. She ran like the other horses were standing still. Not being able to catch the leader, just too much of a gap there. But my goodness, that was quite a stretch run.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be fun. I like watching closers run. I think it's exciting seeing them come from outside the pack. And Curtis, something we didn't talk about with the smaller fields, does that give a little bit more opportunity for the horses to get clear to run the race that they want to race, not get boxed in, pinned against the rail, that kind of thing, maybe jammed up in the middle as they look for a hole there coming down the back stretch or coming down the home stretch?
Yeah, it does. And a lot of it turns into a jockey's race as well. Joel Rosario, like I talked about with the last race, is so good at getting into a rhythm with the horse and coming from off the pace. He's very good at spotting a position. It's kind of like when I was racing cars. They tell you need to be looking way down the track and find your spot to come through. Rosario is an expert at doing that. So I would expect to see Oleksandr coming down the middle of the track. She's going to go wider on the horses. That's her running style. In a race like this, you've got 8 horses. You'd expect to see quite a bit of pace, but there isn't that much on paper. Pure Sensation has won this race before. He's been in it 3 different times. He's coming off of a layoff, which is his only real concern, but this horse is all speed. As long as he can get out of the gate cleanly, expect to see him trying to take them gate to wire. My concern is that at 6 furlongs, it might be just a little bit too long. He's also 9 years old, so he's got a lot of wear and tear on his, just a lot of miles on the body. There's a horse named Hidden Scroll here who's going to be interesting. He tried going on the turf on June 3rd here. And when I say try, I mean as soon as the gates opened, he fell right to his face, and the jockey went flying about 3 feet up in the air. The fact that the jockey's back on is a good sign. This horse has got a lot of talent, and he has a lot of hype that came with him as a 3-year-old, because on the Pegasus Day, so the richest day in American racing, he broke his maiden by 14 lengths. I mean, people were thinking he was going to win the Kentucky Derby off of that race. But he's such a knucklehead that he gets all screwy. So you don't know what to expect from him on turf. You would expect for him to show speed because that's what he's done on dirt. But we have no idea. So some people on the Racing Dudes team are going to be using him in their pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, simply because he's such a giant question mark. For me, I think he's too much of a knucklehead to risk any kind of my money on, but there's potential there.
And I know, just to back up just a bit, you're talking about pure sensation.
Mm-hmm.
As a favorite, I understand the experience level, but I went back and checked, and this horse hasn't won over 5 furlongs in almost 3 years. So it just seems like I think you're definitely onto something as far as this horse fading down the stretch. I'm not sure. I think it's a great opportunity for some of the longer shots to come in. One of the ones that I was looking at, and I talked myself out of it, was the one horse, the Kentucky. Just running his second race on turf. He hasn't run in only over a year, or almost a year. And the kicker for me, and I wanted to talk to you about this, Curtis, is he's newly gelded. And I don't know how you can think about anything else except where are my nuts as far as running a horse race. I mean, what do they do that to calm them down, or what is the story with actually gelding a horse? Because obviously it takes away all the breeding,
right.
the breeding opportunities. So what sort of extreme bad behavior does a horse have to exhibit to be gelded?
It's a hormonal thing. If they're a little difficult to train, if it's hard to get their mind straight. For example, I've been saying for almost a year now that I think Hidden Scroll should be gelded because he's just so wildly inconsistent. Sometimes we call it the ultimate equipment change, because sometimes you can add blinkers to a horse, that's adding equipment, or take them off. Here you're literally taking off the ultimate equipment for him. You usually see horses actually perk up. First time gelding, if you're looking at a past performance, you'll see that G is in a circle to draw your attention to the fact that he is now gelded. So you can usually expect a little bit of improvement. My concern is that the horse just hasn't been seen in a long time. And even at his best, if he was in form, like if this was his race, a month after he was in the Daytona Stakes in his first turf try, I'd only consider him underneath, because I just don't think he's got the full ability to beat. I mean, this is a grade 1 race that has a Breeders' Cup berth on the line. The winner of this race gets a free entry into the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at the end of the year, which saves you about $50,000 if you're the connection. So people aim for these types of races. That's why you see Oleksandr shipping from California to come out here. That's why you see Kentucky shipping, Stubbins, all of these horses coming in. They're targeting this for a reason. And if this was a grade 3 race on the card with lesser competition, I'd consider him. It's just, you've got some really, really strong horses. Now, that being said, Graham Motion is training him for the first time. He's 21% with a $3 ROI with a horse starting for him for the first time from a different barn. And he's 24% with an even better ROI when horses are coming off of long layoffs. So if there's one person that you want in your corner bringing a horse off of a long layoff into this kind of a race for the first time, this is a great guy to do it.
Okay. Very good. Scott, thoughts on race number 9?
So Kentucky was my sleeper candidate to win this race. But for me, I was looking into pure sensation, but you already brought up the point that he hasn't won a race of this length in roughly, how long did you say? You said it was about 3.
Well, it went back, I'm just about 3 years. I think 3 years ago, July.
So originally I was attracted to pure sensation because the horse has literally won this race already. But then I looked at how old the horse was and his results, and I wasn't exactly that intrigued. At first glance, I thought this was a 2-horse race. I thought it was between Oleksandr and Stubbins. I'm not a big fan of Texas Wedge. I feel like that horse is just a little bit behind in comparison to Stubbins and to Oleksandr. Kentucky is my potential sleeper if you were going to go for a potential long shot to make a run here. But for me, I'm going to have to link to Stubbins. The main reason why Oleksandr, as we talked about before, likes to kind of make a late run. And the question that I have there is if Stubbins just simply is gifted a lead over Oleksandr because Oleksandr feels more comfortable making the late run. I don't really know if they might give Stubbins a little bit too much of a lead to make up at the end. And I feel like Oleksandr might try to make a run, maybe catch up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I just think Stubbins is not going to slow down enough late in order to forfeit the lead. So for that reason, if I had to lean anywhere, I would lean to Stubbins winning, and I'd assume Oleksandr is going to come on extremely strong late in a second place finish.
Yeah, that's a great analysis. And Stubbins, too, that Daytona race, when he got steadied late, first of all, the horse that beat him is in his same barn, Wildman Jack. That horse was into that race considered a top prospect for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. So for him to have been gaining late and really lost all chance, but still only missed by half length against a horse who is considered to win this division later in the year is impressive. That was his first start since November. You can project a lot of improvement for a horse getting a second start. So like I said, for me, it was a slight lean to Oleksandr over Stubbins, but it's like 1-1A for me. They're so talented. And you brought up a great point, Scott. From a pace perspective, he sits closer. He should get first jump. Oleksandra will be coming late, and she has no problem passing horses. But you give a horse that's talented like Stubbins, if he gets on the lead off the turn, and Alexandra's a few lengths behind, he's going to get brave, and he's got a very talented jockey in Luis Saez, who piloted Maximum Security to winning the Kentucky Derby last year before he was disqualified. Saez and Stubbins, you could see them getting brave up there and just being too hard to catch. So great analysis from your side there.
All right, very good. Yeah, I'm officially going to go with Oleksandr on this one. She won this race a year ago, performs well at Belmont Park, and I like the closers. I'm a sucker for a closer. Give me Oleksandr coming off the pace there, flying by Stubbins down the home stretch. Curtis, what's your final analysis of this and who you got on your ticket?
I'm going to put Oleksandr up top, but if I was playing the multi-race sequences, I would definitely use her and Stubbins. If you think that Gamine was a surefire winner of that race, I would probably only use these two horses here if you're playing a pick three sequence, especially because I'm expecting the Belmont to be chalky. So you really don't want to invest too many different bullets, as we say, in horses. You don't want to spread too much. So if you were playing like a pick three, I'd say do a $5 pick three that's going to single Gamine if you love her. Use Stubbins and Oleksandr here, and then single the heavy favorite. You're not going to get a lot of a profit, but because you're playing it for $5 instead of 50 cents, you're going to get a little bit more money back.
And is this an actual pick three at the track, the 8, 9, 10?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a grade 1 pick three. It's going to be some of the best horses in the country back to back to back. So it's pretty exciting. All
right, very good. And then there was one, and let's talk about the Belmont Stakes. We touched on it early. It's usually the last race in the sequence of the Triple Crown. Of course, this year it will be the first. It usually runs at 1.5 miles, as that is quite a test as they go 2 turns. And it seems like that home stretch sometimes takes forever. Watching them go to that 1.5 miles, but none of that's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to go 1 mile and an eighth, and we have a massive favorite there in the 8 hole, and that is Tis the Law, being ridden by Miguel Franco. Curtis, is anybody going to have anything for this horse?
It's going to be really tough. This horse I've been high on since he was a 2-year-old. We have a fantasy league that we do for the Racing Dudes team where we each pick horses that we get points along the Kentucky Derby trail for, similar to how the horses earn them to actually make the Kentucky Derby. And this was my teammate and I, this was our first round draft pick. And we would have made him, we only had one horse ranked higher above him. That's Honor AP, who looked like a monster winning the Santa Anita Derby. We were very excited to take this horse, and he hasn't let us down. He wins the Grade 3 Holy Bull at Gulfstream Park very easily. Then he goes to the Florida Derby, which is Grade 1 race, going the same distance, looks even better there. Some people have had a concern that he hasn't raced since March 28th when that race was held, but if you look at the Holy Bull, that was off of a 2-month break. The Florida Derby, almost 2 months as well. So it's been a little over 2 months, maybe 2.5 months when he races, but there's no concern here. He keeps working out tremendously. He's one of those horses that when he's working out, he doesn't want to stop. So if you were trying to get him just into a slow work, the jockey the whole time is just sitting there holding the reins, trying to keep the horse slowed down because he just wants to go. And so that kind of an instinct you love to see in a horse. It's so hard for me to see somebody beating him. It can happen. It's horse racing. Stranger things have happened, but Tis the Law is going to be a heavy favorite for a reason.
And that was was it the Holy Bull where he basically he broke out to an early lead, and then the jockey checked him up and then took him out, and then took him outside and ran him a little bit and then checked him up again. I mean, for a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old to be able to do that kind of thing is am I crazy? Is that pretty much a skill set that you don't usually see in horses that young?
No, that's excellent analysis. So what happened in 3 races back, the Kentucky Jockey Club, he was the favorite going in, and he got stuck on the inside into the stretch run. He got stuck on the inside behind some horses, and because he got slowed down, he ended up finishing 3rd, and he didn't look that great. And so the jockey afterwards, Manny Franco, said, I learned he's got to be in the outside. The trainer said, whatever you have to do, keep him clear. So what you saw in the Holy Bull is that he broke from the 3-post. He was stuck inside of horses. And as soon as he got straightened out on the backstretch, the jockey did exactly what you said. He slammed on the brakes. For a second, it looked like he'd gotten hurt because of how sharply he stopped. The jockey steers him out, gets him into the clear. And from that point, it was over. But that move is why he won that race. Now he draws the 8 pole. There's only 2 horses to his outside. He's only going 1 turn. So you would expect that Franco's already going to be in a perfect position here. He's going to probably go 3-4 wide through that far turn. But horses like Tiz the Law and Honor AP, they have such long, powerful strides that it's better to lose ground, go 3-4 wide, than be on the inside and risk getting stopped. As soon as he gets that momentum going, he's like a freight train, and he's almost impossible to stop.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to fill out our trifecta or our exacta here. One of the horses that I've got my eye on is a horse that drew the perfect post position, and that's Tap It to Win, a speed horse coming on the rail. It seems like if ever there was an opportunity for him to break through, this would be it. Just going 1 turn, basically going 5 furlongs before you hit any kind of a turn at all. Is there any way that he can get out there and go wire to wire here, Curtis?
Absolutely, and I think this is your most likely upsetter. If you can get a good price on him, if you're feeling a little adventurous, I would say bet this horse to win. Anything probably 4-1, 5-1 or higher. Put a little money on. Don't put a lot, but put a little money on him, because so often in these races, if you let a horse go out to an early lead, I don't care how good Tiz the Law is. If nobody's pressuring Tap It to Win, he's going to get really brave and just keep going and going, and he's going to have so much like endurance and stamina built up from nobody pressing him early that you could see him definitely going from gate to wire. There was a late addition here, 4 left, the 6 horse. He was supposed to actually be in the Woody Stevens, which is a sprint race. They moved him here at the last second. I would expect to see him applying some pressure to Tap It to Win, but Tap It to Win's last race, when he went him on the 16th over this course, that was only on June 4th. The trainers, he was so impressive that day, the trainer said, we're throwing him in the Belmont. Like, that race was good enough for him to go. Without a lot of pace pressure here, I mean, Tiz the Law is going to have to sit close to the pace, and he's going to have to go some point probably during the turn and make his move to prevent Tap It to Win from just getting too free on the lead.
Right, and that's like you said, that's a very fast horse. He went off a little better than 6-1 and put up a 97 as far as his buyer rating goes. So that's Scotty. Who are you looking at as far as a second choice here? Who do you like?
I was looking at Tap It to Win, and the main reason why is because of the fact that Sol Volante, who is currently listed as a 9-2 as the second favorite, very, very small second favorite over Dr. Post. It is worth mentioning that in the matchups, if you actually look at the matchups on some offshore books, Tap It to Win is -155 over Sol Volante. So I expect Tap It to Win to close as the second favorite by the time that this race is going to kick off, especially with who the jockey is, if you want to just look into the breakdown. So for that reason, I think Tiz the Law is going to win. I mean, I was hoping for a really good race, assuming that Nadal and Charlton were both going to run. Now neither of them are going to run. So I feel like by process of elimination, literally, I feel like Tiz the Law is by far the best horse in this race. I don't think it's close. I think Tiz the Law should win pretty handily. For second place, though, I cannot say I'm not familiar with Dr. Post. I mean, anytime you have Virat Ortiz Jr., that's definitely a pretty good jockey to have in that situation. But I do like Tap It to Win on the rail, and I think the fact that the second favorite is currently a plus a 125 underdog in a matchup against Tap It to Win tells me that Tap It to Win is probably the second best horse in this race. So for that reason, if I had to play it, I would probably just do an exacta with Tiz the Law and Tap It to Win. So I'd probably just go 8-1. But I know that Tiz the Law, who is currently a 6-5 on the opening lines, if you look at any of the fixed lines offshore, -135, -145 already. That line will probably keep climbing. I think Tiz the Law will close it once again, probably around a 3-5 or a 4-5 if I had to guess on where that horse will close. So for that reason, I really just think Tiz the Law is going to blow everybody out of the water.
Curtis, let me ask you this one about that 2 horse, about Solo Valente. How unusual is it that you're going to bring a horse back to run just 11 days after their last race?
It's pretty unusual, especially in American racing and with 3-year-olds. The trend lately in the last few years has been to really baby these horses. I mean, you can kind of look at Tiz the Law a little bit, not in his defense, that he would have, gone right to the Kentucky Derby if everything was on time and there wouldn't be that gap. But Sole Volante, he won that. It's not just that he won that race, it's how he won it. He was never asked to move. And one of the horses he beat is named Ete Indian, who was going to go to the Haskell in July. I don't know if he's still going to now. That horse was supposed to beat Sole Volante. That was supposed to be a prep race for Ete Indian to win, to keep him fit. And Sole Volante, who's the same trainer, he was just expected to more or less get paid for a workout and then come to the Belmont. So the fact that he won that so well does give you pause to look at him. My concern, this horse loves to come from the parking lot when he races. This horse loves to come flying late. And if you've got a speedy horse like Tap It to Win, who's up front, he's going to be hard to catch. And Tiz the Law, we've already said, is going to get the first jump on him. Tiz the Law doesn't get past. Once he gets to the lead, that horse is gone. So if you're looking to play underneath, I think you guys have definitely touched on two really great ones to use. Sole Volante is definitely a better horse than, I'd say, 80%, 70, 80% of this field. It's just a matter of he comes from too far out. So you'd really need to see Luca Panici, his jockey, make a move. And Panici's a good jockey, but he is not the world-class name like a John Velasquez, like a Manny Franco, like an Irad Ortiz Jr. So I kind of said this half jokingly, and it's no knock on Luca Panici, but I just can't say Belmont Stakes winning jockey Luca Panici with a straight face. It's just sometimes you have to say things out loud and think, is this real? It's like saying Super Bowl MVP Matt Stafford. I can't say that with a straight face, and I'm a Detroit Lions fan. So it's just sometimes you just kind of have to boil it down to that.
So quick question. Since you just said that horse typically starts from the parking lot, I'm assuming that means that you believe the shortened distance is actually going to be a problem for this horse?
Not necessarily. With him, it's just he just makes one. It's like you just press go at the same time.
I meant in comparison to the normal length. Would you agree that if the race was longer, he might have more time to make up the deficit that he usually gets himself into at the start?
Well, because he's bred to handle a long distance, and a lot of times in the original Belmont, you just see horses like in the Kentucky Derby, they just can't handle it and they just fall off. So these horses come flying and pass everybody because they get tired.
Yeah. I mean, that was my thought, because I was thinking, as you just touched upon, that's why I kind of think Tap It to Win is the minus 155 favorite in that matchup. If it was normal length, that number I think would be a lot closer, because you can make the argument that Tap It to Win might, being a complete speedster, might just run out of gas late over the last couple furlongs. But now that the race is shorter, I don't really think Sole Volante will be able to start in its normal position in the back and then have enough time to make up some of that deficit in the shortened distance. So I feel like, that kind of touches upon my thought process.
Curtis, if I wanted to poke, if I wanted to look for chinks in the army, chinks in the army, Jesus, yikes. Can we talk about Manny Franco for a little bit? We're looking up some stats on him. He's 9 for his last 100 as far as winning. He's 7 for his last 53 on dirt and 3 for his last 20 in stakes races. Does he have the skill set and the quality, the level of competence that to take this horse home, that maybe not quite at the level of some of the other jockeys? Am I reading too much into stats?
That's a great question. I personally think he's like maybe a half step below the top jockeys in here, but where I will counter that, which is a good argument to bring up, where I will counter is that after that Kentucky Jockey Club defeat, the trainer told him, you lost it because you got stuck inside. Do not do that again. And he listened. These jockeys sometimes, especially the bigger names, they don't always listen because they think they know everything. Manny Franco proved with his humility there, and he listened. And he said, all right, I'll do this. I'm not worried about that. He also has a lot of confidence because he won the Holy Bull the way he did, because he won the Florida Derby that way. He's got 2 Grade 1 wins. The Champagne Stakes that he won last summer, that was a big field as well. For him to have won all of these spots, Franco's got a lot of confidence in this specific horse, and he doesn't always get the top horses like you would see an Ortiz or a Velasquez get. So sometimes those numbers are a little skewed because he's just not riding the absolute top horses every time.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That certainly makes sense. That if you're not quite at the level, you're probably not going to get the A number 1 mounts every time. So All right, so I've got one request here, Curtis. Talk me off the ledge with the second Pletcher horse, another big time closer, Farmington Road. Again, I like horses that come off the pace. It's just the kind of thing I enjoy watching. As not a good horse player, as I admitted on the last show. Any shot here for this for that 5 horse?
I say no. If Sole Volante comes from the parking lot, Farmington Road's coming from the next county over. He always leaves himself with too much to do, which again, in a race like the original Belmont, if you were looking to play him, to finish second or third, that's a good bet. But as far as winning, if you look at his form, he hasn't won since he got an allowance, or since he broke his maiden at Tampa back in January. Now you can forgive him for facing Nadal in the Arkansas Derby or for facing Mr. Monomoy in the Risen Star Stakes, but that Oakland Stakes race in between that he lost by a half length, that was a bad field. Compared to this, that was a bad field, and he couldn't get the job done there. It's the same distance. He's going one turn here versus 2, but I mean, Javier Castellano, who's been aboard him for 2 of those races, finished 4th both times, just can't get this horse moving in time. So if you're looking to play a trifecta or a superfecta, play him 3rd or 4th, but Sole Volante is a much better closer than he is. I don't see him getting anything better than 3rd or 4th.
Do we worry about Sole Volante being not only the short layoff, but making the trip from Florida in that 10-day period?
That's a good question. I'm not worried about it. His trainer I believe he finished 2nd with Lionheart in the Kentucky Derby several years ago. Brian Cohen's won races all over the world. He knows what he's doing with horses. If he wasn't sure about this, he wouldn't have sent him. They even, after that race, said, we're thinking the Belmont, but we need to see how does he come out of it? How does he look afterwards? They said afterwards that he looked like he hadn't even raced. So, okay, we'll send him. There's an old adage that if they're good, run them. Don't worry about the layoff. If the horse is telling you, I can run them. And that's what they're doing here.
Okay, very good. Scott, any final questions that you have for Curtis about the Belmont Stakes?
Yes, I actually have one question. I'm looking a little bit offshore, and the offshore's really gone above and beyond with regard to fixed lines because of the fact that there's pretty much nothing else for people to bet. They have fixed lines for exactas. I know that it's a gamble because you don't really know exactly where the line's going to be closing, but they have Tis the Law and Tap It to Win in an exacta that's fixed at plus 240. And I have to assume that Tap It to Win is going to see their odds drop from 6 to 1 probably to around, I'd have to assume around 3 to 1, give or take, maybe 7 to 2. Do you think there's any value in taking that fixed exacta at plus 240? Do you think it's a little bit too premature?
I think it's a good one. If you're that confident in Tis the Law, as I am, Tap It to Win for me is the most likely second place horse because of the pace that we talked about. Mm-hmm. I think if you can, now I say this as someone who almost never plays exactas. I would say take that because I don't see Tis the Law is going to be your number 1 single. Everyone's going to be playing him hard to win. So there's no value in betting him to win unless you're looking to make, 50, 60 cents on the dollar at best.
The fix is already minus like 140. So you're going to see him as close the minus horse. That's just the guess.
So with Tap It to Win, if we all feel like he's probably the second best horse or most likely to finish second, take it what you can get. The guy who is our expert for racing dudes with covering exotics, his strongest bet is Tis the Law over Tap It to Win. And this is a guy who doesn't bet often except on the biggest days, and he usually cashes pretty big. And so a straight exacta Tiz over Tap It to Win is his play.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking the issue that you have is that you always have to wonder. A lot of people don't exactly know how to calculate the exactas, especially when they see the closing odds, and then you see people scrambling at the TV screen waiting to see what the payout is because they can't calculate it themselves. And I'm kind of curious, since nobody really knows what the line is going to close for Tap It to Win, I have to assume Tis the Law is going to close at 3 to 5. It could be even lower, to be honest. It's probably going to get ugly. Do you think plus 240 is a good deal based on where these horses should close? Because I'd have to assume that Tap It to Win will probably close at around 3 to 1, and I have to assume that Tis the Law will probably close at 3 to 5 or even maybe 2 to 5. It's going to get pretty ugly. Do you think plus 240 is pretty good value there?
I think that's the right value. If you're confident in it, play it. Take that bet. If you're not confident in it, then don't play it. So it's just a matter of how you're feeling confident, because I think that's a really good price for it. You're getting essentially 2.5 to 1 on those kind of odds right there. So I would say that's probably going to be a better bet. Definitely a better bet than betting Tiz the Law straight to win.
Yeah, that was going to be my bet. On the fixed, if you really wanted to go for a massive bet, I feel like him to win is one of the safer plays on the card just because Tiz the Law is by far the class of the entire. But, you've seen weirder things happen in horse racing, so you don't want to really throw your entire bankroll into one race.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think Tiz the Law, even at minus 135, really is not that bad because I really think this horse is probably going to close. I mean, I was mentioning numbers that are around minus 150 or even higher. I just think that money's going to pour in on this horse, especially with people who might have lost the first two races that we're talking about and are trying to play makeup. So I'm assuming, are we in agreement with that most, if not all of the bets in this race should be coming on Tiz the Law, so this line should just plummet?
Yeah, it's not the most attractive or sexy sounding bet, but sometimes you just gotta pound your opinion hard on something like this that you love.
Well, I remember that with Justify when I was there, and Justify kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and people were going, well, maybe I should bet on somebody else, and everyone's going, but that means Justify won't win, and he's clearly going to win, and then Justify won. So the line's going to keep dropping. I don't think people get that discouraged. You'll just get more creative with your exotics.
Okay, Curtis, so let me ask you this. If you wanted to do an exotic, is there any value in going 8-1 all on a trifecta?
You could do that if you were that confident that it's going to go 8-1 straight for the order there.
8-1, 1-8 all.
Yeah, I'd just say 8-1 all, and that'd be a good way. Because especially if you like Farmington Road that much, I mean, I might not, but if you do, play your opinion. I mean, it's not my money you're playing with; it's your money. So if he hits, especially someone like Farmington Road, you're going to get really strong value underneath. The year that Justify won the Kentucky Derby, there was a horse that came in fourth that was 87-1, and the top three finishers were, I believe, the three of the four top betting choices. But yet, because he came in, that 87-1 came in fourth there, that thing paid a hell of a lot more than it should have. So you got a lot of value out of that underneath spot. So using that all button in the last, you're looking at, that's a $4 ticket for a 50-cent base. Right. So that's for $4, you're going to get a lot more than $4 back if you get a Farmington Road underneath.
Okay. All right. Very good. Scott, anything else?
For the most part, no. I mean, we covered the main three races that we were going to talk about. Just a quick question for Curtis. Are there any races or any horse in particular that you like outside of the three that you believe has some value to them?
Well, that has value. It's hard. These races are a little chalky when it comes to...
It doesn't have to just be the Belmont. I mean, it could just be anything upcoming.
Right.
Either today or even over the weekend.
Boy, that's tough. Because it is look kind of chalky as far as value goes. There's a race earlier in the card called the Pennine Ridge Stakes that has a heavy favorite named Decorated Invader that my bosses with Racing Dudes, they think this is the best 3-year-old dirt or turf in the country. I think he's actually vulnerable, and I think he's going to get very overbet because he hasn't started in quite a long time. There's a horse named that is a 3-horse Proven Strategies, who I like a lot more to pull the upset. He's got early speed, which in a turf race is important, but this is a 7-horse field? 7-horse field that they're going with. He's the only horse that really on paper looks like he wants to be on the front end. And if you get out there alone, like we've talked about before, it's going to be hard to catch him. So if Decorated Invader has a little bit of rust on him, you could see the 3 Proven Strategies winning the Pennine Ridge, and that's race 4 on Saturday at Belmont Park.
Well, I like the fact that you're extremely confident because you decided to fade your boss, which is really a bold move. So, hopefully that pays off for you, but we'll see.
Sometimes that's almost a no-win when you fade the boss.
You get the "I told you so," and then he just gives you that look, and then next thing you know, you have some more work on your desk the following morning. So,
right, that's right.
But
all right, well, very good, Curtis. We always appreciate it, man. This is because it's certainly a sport that I enjoy and I'd like to learn more about, and I can't figure out a better guy to learn it from than you. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Very
good. I hope we all get hot tomorrow. What time are you going to bed out there, brother? About 9:30, 10 o'clock?
I actually was trying to get to bed about 8:45 last night. I ended up staying until about 9:30 a little bit, just to keep my wife company. But it'll probably be another early night for me. But Saturday's the last day that it all goes down, and I think Sunday I'm just going to spend mostly in bed. So, but it's like we said at the top of the show, man. It's a labor of love. Like it's so many worse things I could be doing at that time of day. So, but I really appreciate you guys having me back on. I know we didn't have the best start with that first race, or the first time I was on. Those races were quite a bit nutty, but I feel a lot more confident about these races than I did last time. And if you want to learn more, if you go to racenews.com, we actually have a full wagering guide that we're selling on the site. It has a preview of every single race. You can see what my bosses think about it. You can see what I think about it. And this is literally every race that's on the card. So if it's a small little allowance race earlier, if you want to know how to play an early pick 5, racenews.com, we got that for sale right now.
All right. I'm probably going to pick one up myself. So yeah, I think a Saturday of a horse racing sounds like a dandy way to spend the day. Scott, any final thoughts?
Looking forward to the Belmont, even though it's the first one, which I'm not really used to. And like everybody else, unlike most years, I'll be also enjoying this from my couch. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Curtis. We appreciate it. We'll definitely have you on again, and certainly as we get closer to the other Kentucky Derby, the other Triple Crown legs.
Crown races, yeah.
I feel like I got up at 5:30 in the morning. And yeah, just to pick your brain about horse racing in general. So thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Have a great day, man. Get some sleep. Scotty, as always, thanks for being in the co-pilot's chair and having somebody that knows a little something about horse racing as well. That certainly helps me out as well. And of course, thanks for all of you for joining us here as we take a look at the Belmont Stakes and a couple of other Grade 1 stakes races. Should be a lot of fun. I hope you guys have got a lot of great information. I know I did. Appreciate you stopping by. Good luck on all of your plays. And we'll be back tomorrow with Scott, of course, and Winning Willie as we take a look at Talladega and NASCAR. It's we go from horses to cars, man. We go from 1 horsepower to about 800. So that should be a blast. And we'll have our best picks on that one as well. But until then, everybody out there, stay safe, stay well. Good luck on all your bets today. Good luck at the track tomorrow. And, yeah, we'll be back to yak about NASCAR tomorrow. All right, everybody take care. Have a great day. See you again next time. Bye-bye.